And now, from Candlestick Point in San Francisco, California, it's the Stick 49er Podcast Show with your hosts, Lucas McLaughlin and Lucas Ortiz. This is a Lucas and Lucas production. Please like and subscribe. Let's go Niners! Let's go Niners! Let's go Niners! Well, 49er fans, got a special treat for you today. He's been broadcasting from San Francisco for over 2 decades, providing his unique insights and captivating sports radio voice. It's an honor to welcome the great Damon Bruce to the Stick 49ers podcast.
Hey, thank you so very much. I mean, it's not quite 2 decades yet.
Wikipedia is the best thing ever.
But we're definitely halfway through. Well, I guess I'm in a second decade. But like for it to be 2 decades, you got to be years like 21, 22, 23. It's only year 16. But it's good to be on with you. I mean, Luke, I remember when you used to call into my show so many years ago, all the funny things that you did.
Oh, look who's here. Look who's here just in time to wish everybody a ho-ho-ho with a bottle of rum, of course. Here is the one, the only, Pat Summerall.
Good morning, Gary. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well.
I've been listening to you all night, Gary. It's been great. I really appreciate it, Gary. I really like what you tend to talk about.
Mr. Ortiz, good to be on with the both of you guys. I know you got a passion project in your podcast, and I think that's great. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for being our first ever guest, Damon. I mean, it's a big deal for us, man. You're a very big name, and we're just...
It's not often I take guest virginities.
We can't wait to pick your brain about the 49ers.
Let's do it.
This podcast thing has been an interesting adventure. Basically, I started the show based on your suggestion.
Wow. Thank you very much.
I had lost my job, started having aspirations to become a broadcaster, and then you were nice enough to give me that phone call. And in a nutshell, you basically said, dude, take advantage of modern technology, start a podcast. And here we are.
Here we are.
It's
like I created a monster or something. No, but look, it's great when people, have dreams. You should chase them. You should do it. And it's crazy. Getting on the radio is still as hard as ever, but becoming a broadcaster to the extent that anyone can start a podcast it's literally an avenue that didn't exist in my entire life right until it did. I mean, I had to go to, school and college to learn how to be a broadcaster, whatever the hell that means, and get studio time. And now everybody's got studio time in their own pocket with their iPhones. So what a world we live in. And I'm great that you guys are having fun with it.
Good afternoon, Donovan. Sorry, throw that in there.
It's funny. You sent me some clips, old Pat Summerall clips from those have got to be 12, 15 years old at this point. And
I know, man. I can't believe how old those are.
They're so funny. Listening to those brings back some memories, man. And
that's awesome. Well, we're not going to do the Pat's Picks segment because Damon's here, but I put together a little highlight reel of clips from my calls back in the day, years ago, when I used to call Damon's show, just to kind of clear things up for some of the viewers that may not know that we have a little history there. So let's take a little listen to that real quick.
Real fast to Pat Summerall. Pat, what's the bar tab tonight?
Good afternoon, Danny. How are you doing tonight? I'm sorry, Damon.
I'm great, Pat. You must be excited. The Super Bowl is set.
We've been watching the Bears. They've been outrageously good, actually. I've been very impressed. He actually has a message for the Colts.
This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
And that's what he wanted to tell them. I had to give you a call and let you know. They're going down, Damon.
Demented is this guy? Mr. Summerall. Now, you know what would be a great Pat Summerall name? Give me a one good Brian Urlacher.
Brian Urlacher.
And you know what I want before you leave?
Jerry Rice.
One more. Play all the hits.
Line saucer at the 5.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. afternoon, Justin. How are you doing tonight? Ronnie Lott would never carry a gun.
They didn't have to. They didn't have a trigger finger left. What finger did he have to cut off? His pinky?
I think they sent him back in the game after cutting off several fingers.
Thank you very much. There he is, Pat Summerall, only available to you on Sports Phone. Real fast to Babs in Concord.
Pat Summerall, funniest guy ever. Okay, that guy is creative.
Guy's amazing.
Oh, but look who else is called. He heard the trifecta, horn blowing, and apparently 2 fingers of scotch, and here's Pat Summerall. How are you, Pat?
Good morning, Gary. How you doing?
Doing very well. Oh, Pat Summerall and droids. You get that on any other show? I don't think so. Thank you.
Chewbacca. Jerry Rice.
Your final question, does Klein Saucer score this week?
Klein Saucer at the 1, fumble, recovered by Urlacher. And he's going the other way, Donovan.
Pat, it is always a pleasure. You usually join us late night in the cocktail hour. This is an early appearance from you.
Definitely. I decided to stumble out of the bar and give you a call. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Pat. It is always a pleasure to talk to legendary play-by-play man Pat Summerall here on Sports Phone. Seriously, that guy cracks me. I know funny, and that guy's funny.
It was funny then. It's funny now. I mean, yeah, the one that you good afternoon, Aaron, or whatever you used to call me.
How you doing tonight?
Yeah, that was funny stuff, man. Funny stuff. Man.
And we still do that bit, so it's really awesome to have you on the show. Let's get into a little Niner stuff. So I think what we'll do is bounce some questions off of you and just go from there. So Lucas, do you want to start it off?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, it'd be my pleasure. So Damon, I'm a big lover of watching the offensive line play, and it's been a very polarizing topic. You know, what do we need to do especially on the right side of the line? You got Mike McGlinchey, while being a pretty good run blocker, has been just horrendous as a pass blocker, and he's been just very up and down, very inconsistent. Whoever's lined up at the right guard position, whether it be Colton McKivitz or Tom Compton or, who knows, has been very, inconsistent at that position. And I just want to get your idea of like what the 49ers should do moving forward. Do they need to draft? Do they need to sign somebody in free agency? What do we do at those positions?
I think they need to just reinvest in Mike McGlinchey in terms of asking him to go back to last year's playing weight. He cut a lot of weight, and I think that that's affected how effective he is. It's crazy. He has had some terrible moments in pass protection. He's allowed fewer sacks than Trent Williams. Isn't that nuts? I mean, it just seems like he's always on the wrong end of the really bad highlight. He's still got potential, and the Niners aren't going to be coming off Mike McGlinchey, not yet anyways. You bring up right guard, and that's definitely the bigger problem. Like you said, Tom Compton, Daniel Brunskill, it's a revolving door of who's able to go this week, and they need some stability there. And whether you find that in free agency or in the draft, I really don't care, but it needs to be addressed. Obviously, Weston Richburg, was a center who was paid an awful lot of money and hasn't been able to play many downs of football due to injuries. So going forward with him feels like a little bit like a gamble, but they're going to have to gamble in a few places because there's an awful lot of money that needs to be sprinkled around guys who might become free agents and leave the team. And then whatever happens to pop up in free agency will be interesting. And then the whole quarterback position brings it to another story. I think your left side of the line is set. I think they're going to give that big offer to Trent Williams. And Laken Tomlinson has probably had the best offensive year on the entire team, but for Brandon Ayuk's rookie year. I mean, Laken Tomlinson is the one consistent thing that this team can count on to play and play well pretty much week to week. So it needs to be addressed. When we talked about what this season might look like, strengths and weaknesses, we never brought up the line being a weakness. Like it's a surprise to see the step back that they collectively took this year and how they go about fixing it. I'm not exactly sure, but it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I guess my biggest quarrel with McGlinchey is just, it really is technique, and I think that can be cleaned up. He plays high. Looks like he gets pushed back a little bit, and that could definitely be because of the lack of weight and not being able to anchor down. It just looks like he's getting pushed around by some of the better defensive ends in the league. But I think he can be better. We've seen him play at a very high level, especially last year when we made it to the Super Bowl. You know, the team was just in sync. It was a well-oiled machine, and
it was, you know, and that's the thing. If there hadn't been any evidence of him doing the job well, I'd be a lot more concerned. I really would. But we have seen him do it.
Yeah.
So whatever was working in the past, return to it. Whatever weight he was playing at the past, return to it, and I would expect better dividends.
So this team has obviously been more than plagued with injuries, more than I've ever seen maybe on a 49er team, maybe on any team. Looking at the three quarterbacks, one, obviously Jimmy G, I would like to see him come back, but I know that he's too expensive for all the free agents we have to re-sign or try to re-sign. What do you think as far as the other two backups? Do we kind of just let them go because it seems like they're not getting the job done? And at what point do you draft a young quarterback?
I think Jimmy's back, by the way. I think they're going to bring him back. I know that they're looking at his salary and the easy get out that they've got cooked in this year. But without him, what do you have? You have a non-competitive backup quarterback situation, with all due respect to Nick Mullins, you know, asking him to start. And this is something that Shanahan said today. He's like, you know, any backup quarterback can become pretty popular until you ask him to start too many games. And that's what we've asked of Nick. You know, he's starting, 6-7 games in a row now? That's an awful lot for any backup quarterback. You're going to see the flaws exposed. I don't think Mullins nor Beathard will be on this roster. I do think Jimmy Garoppolo will, because I just don't know what option exists for them unless you're going to start exploring do you want to take on the project of, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Sam Darnold, is that what it's going to be? Are you going to pivot to the kind of cash it would take to bring in Matthew Stafford if he's done in Detroit? I don't know if you're going to do that or if they're going to do that. So Jimmy has flaws, but he's still the guy that equals, hey, the Niners might win today.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. He is compared to, you know, the two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Every quarterback that puts on a Niners jersey is instantly compared to Joe Montana and Steve Young.
Yeah.
And that's tall cotton to be walking in. It really is. I think Jimmy's back. I do. I just don't see a better option. If you can point at and show me a better option.
He did take us to the Super Bowl with a healthy team.
He did.
I know he used to do shit for you, but what has he done for you lately?
Health is a concern.
What have you done for me lately?
Like, look at it this way. I think if he's not on the roster next year, there's more doubt about his week-to-week availability than necessarily his ability. Because you got to be able to go. This whole I'm hurt again, it isn't going to work. It doesn't work. And I think that they conceptually bring back Garoppolo, but somewhere in the draft address a replacement and a backup who, you know, should Jimmy get hurt again, might be thrust into the starting. I don't know if you'd have to go look for another veteran backup on the open market, but looking quarterback somewhere in this draft, even after they resign Garoppolo, is probably the right thing to do, which is terrible because I mean, they got so many other issues that they need to address in the draft. And you'd figure, okay, if Jimmy's here, at least that position's spoken for. But it's not that cut and dry, and we all know it.
Damon, I 100% agree. You know what? If Garoppolo isn't on our team, he's on New England, and he's going to be taking them to the playoffs for the next 10 years. I guarantee it. I just talked to a really good friend / client of mine who's a diehard New England guy. And I was like, would you guys take Jimmy G as your quarterback? He's like, absolutely. We would love to have him on the team.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all I needed to know.
Yeah. Especially that team. You know, I mean, Bill Belichick knows him well, knows him better than any other coach not named Kyle Shanahan. So if he'd be willing to return to it, it might be the wrong time to move off.
And Jimmy G is fairly young still. I mean, he can learn to be a better quarterback. He does pretty well, but I know that Steve Young had some pretty interesting comments about him, but he can learn to throw the ball away. He can learn to make better decisions back there. He already makes some pretty good ones.
He does. I mean, look, it's so funny. The people who complain about Jimmy Garoppolo not being perfect are the first guys to hit the reset button the first time they throw an interception in a game of Madden.
He's going to let it fly. And this is intercepted. Fuck this game.
Mistakes happen on a football field. Mistakes happen to the best quarterbacks, and they happen more frequently to guys who, aren't among the best. Jimmy is pretty damn good. He really is. He's not perfect, but there's a lot of people who watch the train of pretty good pass them by while they're waiting for perfect. And perfect never comes. So I think that the Niners are looking at a reload more than a rebuild. And if you're bringing in a new quarterback, you're in a full rebuild. And for a team that is 1 year removed from a Super Bowl appearance, I don't think that's where they want to be.
Right.
And Steve Young definitely won the big game. He won the big Super Bowl in '94. And he had a lot of things to say about Jimmy G not winning the Super Bowl last year. But when it comes down to it, he lost a heck of a lot of championship games that we could have went to the Super Bowl anyways.
Yeah, I mean, look, Steve had his moment. He was a great player, but look at how many people question who Steve Young was. Was he good enough? And then only became good enough to be allowed into the circle of love the night he won the Super Bowl. Like, it took him putting on a Super Bowl ring for you to identify, hey, he's pretty good. That means you don't know what you're looking at. You're a results-based sports fan who doesn't understand the process, who doesn't understand how to, evaluate something without looking at its final result before you make your decision. Like, along the way, Steve was pretty damn good. It's amazing that few people wanted to admit that.
Yeah, we all got to see him take the monkey off his back in that footage of the game there.
That's right.
Right. Come on in, Steve. You're a part of the family now that you won a Super Bowl. You're welcome here. So Damon, I want to go to the other side of the ball. And this is, I think, the main reason why we don't replace Jimmy G right now, because I think we are in reload, not rebuild. And the number one reason being is we have a championship level defense when everybody's healthy. Now, I know we're going to have a lot of things to figure out in the secondary. The only guy that's signed through next year is Jimmy Ward, I believe. So guys like Jason Verrett are going to be free agents. He's had a resurgent year. Richard Sherman is at the end of his contract. We got to see if we're going to have enough money to re-sign him or if he even wants to stay on our team. And the strong safety position, what are we going to do there? Are we going to keep Jimmy Ward at that strong safety position like he's been playing the last couple of weeks? Or do we move him back to free safety and look at other options? Now, I do really want to bring guys like K'Wan Williams back, but he's going to be a coveted cover guy. And are we going to be able to afford him to be that nickel cornerback position? So I just want to see your take on what we need to do in the defensive backfield to get back to that championship level defense.
I mean, the very first thing that will make that defensive backfield better is getting Nick Bosa back, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
That alone, putting a pass rush is going to make whoever is back there look a little bit better. But you're right, big decisions on Richard Sherman, who I think is very likely gone. You could feel him and the franchise pretty much setting the stage for his exit. I would not be surprised to see him follow Robert Saleh if he gets a head coaching shot for a bigger dollar amount than the Niners would consider giving a 30-plus-year-old corner coming off a year where he was injured and couldn't play an awful lot yet again. And I think it's too bad too, because who doesn't like Richard Sherman? But I think that the end of the parade is here for him. Verrett, that's the biggest decision on the table. Do you trust his stellar play to hold up or his body to give out? Is basically the question that they're asking themselves. He's played the kind of football that could make some other team put a God offer on the table for him. And if he does, it might be hard to match that. Same with K'Wan Williams. He's just good enough to be the target of someone else's overspending. So how Parag goes about negotiating will be really, really interesting. Jaquaski Tart is another question defensively. On the line, you got DJ Jones and Kerry Heidler. You got to bring Heidler back, you would think. But again, he might have played himself into a price tag that'll be hard for the Niners to meet. I would hope that Verrett, who's a Fairfield kid, might be happy just being back in the Bay Area. Maybe, I hate to say hometown discount, but maybe he wants to stay, and that'll make it easier to resign him. But I think K1's probably gone. I think Richard Sherman's probably gone. Hopefully Verrett returns, and you're going to have to spend some draft capital and maybe some other free agent dollars on a few corners and hope that what you're losing in marquee value will be made up for when Nick Bosa comes back.
So no way Richard Sherman comes back as the team's new free safety next year.
I just don't think so. It'd be great. It'd be great, but I really think that Saleh is going to take him wherever he gets the opportunity to be a head coach.
You mentioned Robert Saleh. So if he leaves, which it looks like he's going to take a head coaching job somewhere, does that put the defense in disarray, or do you think that they can bounce back and basically take lead from somebody else the same way? Because they showed a lot of depth this year, and you can tell that they really like playing for Saleh.
Yeah, look, he seems to be a guy who gets along well with his players and his head coach as well, which is important. Saleh's earned an awful lot of credibility and respect in that building, but there are more than one good defensive coaches in the world, and you're looking for the next guy. That's what you have to be doing. And Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure, already has a list of names in his drawer, some retreads, some new guys that we're not familiar with. Maybe Chris Kasarik, who is this team's defensive line coach, is ready for that promotion. It could come from within. It could come from outside. Who knows? I mean, there are, a lot of defensive coordinators out there who I think would look at a chance to join the Niners as a real opportunity to attach themselves to some considerable talent. As much talent is going to be leaving, there's plenty coming back, you would assume too. So they're going to fill the job. That's the way it works. They're going to fill the job either internally or externally. And what can you do other than thank Robert Saleh for his time if it's indeed over and wish him very luck on the next journey? There's a reason why head coaches don't get angry at their coordinators being promoted, because every head coach used to be a coordinator waiting for their promotion. So it's kind of like you pay it forward by hoping that your coordinators can one day be good enough to get a head coaching job somewhere else. And I think that Robert Saleh has earned that.
Definitely.
So I got another question for you, Damon. I want you to put on your head coaching cap, your Shanahan hat, so to speak, and tell me if Jimmy G and George Kittle are healthy enough to play the last 2 weeks of the year, and we're still mathematically not out of the playoff picture, do you risk playing them and having them re-injure those injuries that they had, or do you just sit them the rest of the year?
So look, there's a ton of evidence that says this ain't the year, right? I mean, like every single injury report is evidence this ain't going to be your year. Some performances, their home record, it's all sorts of evidence that it ain't going to be your year. But until it's mathematically not your year, it could technically still be your year. So at the end of if they beat the Cowboys with backups galore, and Kittle and Garoppolo are ready to come back for 2 must-win division games, fuck yeah. Bring them back. Let's do it. Play football. Do it. I mean, because here's the thing. If Jimmy's going to get hurt again, you need to know that. If Kittle's going to get hurt, George Kittle, I was talking to Andrew Brandt many, many years ago about Brett Favre, and he just said something that was really simple.
Brett Favre!
Yeah, he said in football, the player plays. Without in any and all circumstances, without a debilitating injury, the player plays. This is not load management. This is not a 162 game season and the right night for Buster Posey to take off. No. This is the NFL. If you're healthy, if you're paid, the player plays. So I think that so the player plays games that matter. If they lose to the Cowboys and the last 2 games are essential preseason games, totally meaningless, then neither guy should go. But if there's still a shot, you got to take your shot.
So you're going to be the guy that tells George Kittle, who's fully healthy, just fighting at the bit to get back on the field, that you can't play football for 2 games because we're not going to make the playoffs.
That's right.
Ouch.
That's right. And he earns enough money to shut up and do what I say. That's the thing. George Kittle is not some really good story on a rookie deal any longer. George Kittle is now a major, major franchise investment, and you got to protect your investments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Protect him from himself.
Yeah. I mean, it's the fact that he wants to be out there, would hate it to every bone in his body. Like, that's what we love about him. That's why he's so good. But risking him doing something, you know, Kevin Durant tearing in what if something happened that cost him next year too? In a meaningless game, you could never sleep with you could never go to bed again. You could never look at yourself in the mirror again.
Yeah.
If he hurt himself in a game that was a potential playoff game, that's football. The guys get hurt all the time. But you don't get guys hurt in meaningless situations that are huge investments. So that's just the world that Kittle now lives in.
Yeah, and look no further than the Golden State Warriors, right? That's exactly what they did with Draymond Green and Steph Curry. You know, I think if they had Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant still on the team, they would have came back much faster from those injuries. They would have played all season long, and they would have been in the hunt. But because it was kind of a meaningless season, there was no opportunity to make the playoffs with that squad they had last year. They just said, screw it. Let's protect our investments in Draymond Green and Steph Curry. And, you know, that might happen exactly to the same thing might happen exactly with Kittle and Jimmy.
Look, I hate thinking like a general manager and not a fan, because it's so much more business-like than it is, yeah, go get them. But that's the way these teams have to operate. There's, like I said, there's just way too much investment out there in George Kittle now. The highest paid tight end in football history can't be jeopardized in 8 meaningless quarters.
Absolutely.
Hey, Damon, I've got a gripe, which I've been calling issuing a complaint with Star Command.
It's getting on my nerves.
Are you saying you want to lodge a complaint with Star Command?
Oh.
And that is Kendrick Bourne and a couple other players. It seems like he's a good young receiver, and I think he's going to be a free agent as well. And I'm hoping they re-sign him because sometimes he makes great catches. But if you're not winning the game, don't celebrate. It's like this annoying thing where he's spinning the ball or he's, jumping for joy and taking pictures and all this and then the touchdown gets overturned, or
especially when you're dropping 4 passes in a game. Don't celebrate when you eventually
you're not winning. Don't celebrate a catch. It's such a
look, I'm an old school guy to totally agree with you. We now, we're talking about generation bat flip. Celebrate every accomplishment individually, regardless of the collective team effort, and that's just it's a hard genie to put back in the bottle. I've chosen not to fight that war anymore.
I hear you.
It's tough. It's tough out there making a play in a football game, regardless of the situation. I'm a big act like you've been there before proponent, but like I said, we're talking about generation bat flip. So
there was just something so humbling about watching Jerry Rice. If we were losing.
Oh, bye.
He would just hand the ball back to the ref.
Yeah.
Larry Fitzgerald, same way.
Yeah.
They're old school now, but
yeah. And when I was a kid, I wanted to act like and look like and behave like the players that I identify as, hey, they're the greatest of all time. But, like I said, there's not a single defensive play made where an entire team of grown men sprints to an end zone to get on basically the Jumbotron on Instagram. I mean, it's crazy. It's something that I don't really identify with. Like, who cares if you're on this little screen in the end zone? We just saw what you did on NBC. Who cares about the celebration cam? You just did that in primetime on Fox. That's the important camera to be showing up on, not the end zone cam. But again, this is why I'm a 45-year-old man who complains for a living.
Yeah. Well, I'm always going to be the get off my lawn kind of guy. I'm definitely anti-generation bat flip or 5-minute handshake. Guys got like a different handshake for every teammate now. It's like,
so I do love a 12-step handshake. I'm not going to lie. I do appreciate a 12-step handshake for sure.
Where did they find the time to practice these handshakes? That's what I want to know.
The exact same place that I found the time to practice that with my friends when I was in high school. When you're high.
Or pulling a Sharpie out of your sock.
Yeah, pull the Sharpie.
That again, not something I would do, but bravo, sir. Hello. Like, remember when Joe Horn hid the cell phone underneath the stanchion in New Orleans? That
was brilliant.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah.
Now, if everyone's hiding cell phones, that's the thing. If everyone's hiding cell phones around the NFL, it gets played out real quick. But just one, that was great.
Yeah. You score a touchdown, you want to celebrate, your team is close or winning the game, fine. But, a first down catch in the second quarter, don't start doing the worm on the ground and jump up and do a backflip. Like, come on, just get back in the huddle and get the next play. That's all. That's my only gripe.
I will say this. Breakdancing is going to be an Olympic sport in Paris in 2024. So maybe they're thinking about their post-football careers.
Yeah.
Maybe Turbo and Ozone will come out of retirement.
What kind of names are Ozone and Turbo?
The kind of names that only few people are allowed to call us by.
There are street names.
All the dancers have them.
Really?
Yeah. We can only hope.
Yeah,
my first question when I found out breakdancing, I was like, are we sending amateurs or are we sending the pros? Because if we're sending the pros, I know exactly who needs to go.
Well, hey, Damon, thank you so much for being on our show. And just so you know, I went through all the old tapes and Klein Saucer never actually scored.
Oh, no, not Klein Saucer.
He gets really close. He's on the goal line and then there was a penalty.
Thank you very much, Pat. We cannot leave. Klein Saucer was at the 5 last time we checked. He made it down to the 2. Will this be the week Klein Saucer actually gets into the end zone, Pat?
Klein Saucer at the goal line. But there's a flag on the play, Damon. I think it was illegal procedure, but we're checking into it. I hope there's not a replay because that really slows down the game.
Pat, thank you so much. There he goes. Pat Summerall. Oh, good to have him on.
Denied.
Let me tell you, Lucas, it was a pleasure joining you both. Keep chasing your dreams. Again, it's a podcast that you do because you love it.
Yep.
And that is the reward of it all right there. Like, if you don't need public acceptance, you don't need a huge audience to enjoy what you guys do, and keep doing it. Keep doing it. You're fun to talk to. It was a pleasure to be on with you. And the fact that I played any small role in either of you guys wanting to do this is something I feel like I need to apologize to everyone for. So I'm sorry, everyone. No, but seriously, guys, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and let's do it again next football season.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Damon. Happy holidays.
Absolutely. Thanks, Damon.
Take care, fellas.
Have a good one.
Yeah, happy holidays, buddy. Take care.